What a weekend to start this new Premier League season. Manchester City beginning as they mean to go on with a 3-0 victory against Burnley on the opening day of the season. Then in the early kick-off on Saturday, Arsenal with a 2-1 win against Nottingham Forest. Bournemouth got a draw against West Ham. Brighton with a 4-1 win against newly promoted Luton. Everton beaten 1-0 at home by Fulham. Sheffield United with a 1-0 defeat as well. Crystal Palace with the victory there. So many shots for Crystal Palace, a record number of shots for them. And then Newcastle's 5-1 win against Aston Villa on Saturday evening, possibly the performance of the weekend. Brentford got a 2-2 draw against Tottenham and managed 2 goals despite not having Harry Kane anymore to choose from. And then Chelsea's 1-1 draw against Liverpool. The other tussle with them, of course, is going on off the field. News of that in a second. And there's still one match still to come. Manchester United taking on Wolves this evening. With us here in the studio, Darren Lewis, Tim Sherwood and Darren Bent is here sitting in for Righty, as we already know. What a weekend it was, and there's so much to kind of pick out of all of that. What do you think your standout moment of the weekend was?
For me, I think you'd have to go Newcastle against Aston Villa, because a lot of people would put them two clubs kind of on the, even Newcastle in the Champions League. Aston Villa had a really good season last season under Unai, pushing for that top 6 spot. And the way they dismantled Aston Villa, I mean, it was quite comfortable in the end. It could have been more. That was probably the one performance where I thought, OK, Newcastle aren't just a flash in the pan. It wasn't just one season and then this season they might revert back to type. They put their foot down from the very get-go, and I thought they were fantastic against Villa. In terms of things that haven't changed from the last couple of seasons, Manchester City favourites for the title?
Absolutely. I think why Pep Guardiola is at that football club, I think they're the team to beat. I was very interested to see how Chelsea were coming on under Pochettino, and I thought they did very well. They were competitive against Liverpool. Liverpool have to be better than what was last year. I think they will. Looking for someone to challenge. Will it be Arsenal? Will it be Liverpool? Possibly Chelsea. But for me, you're absolutely right. I think Man City are the team to beat. Anyone that gets above them, obviously, they'll win the league.
But bad weekend for all the promoted sides as well. There was a bit of concern for them pre-season, as there always is, even though the team that finishes top, certainly the ones who've been as dominant as Burnley, tend to do quite well.
Yeah.
Maybe we put a caveat in terms of the opposition that they faced this weekend as well?
I think Burnley were actually, if you take away the opposition, they impressed me with the way they played. They passed the ball around with authority and confidence. The style of play, for me, you could see Vincent Kompany's stamp on it. And I think you're right. Take away City, Burnley will hurt a lot of teams, particularly at their own stadium this season, where Vincent Kompany will set them up, not just to defend, but also to really press high, attack, force mistakes from the opposition and grab vital goals.
Yeah, he said that's the worst Burnley will play all season, that they're going to be learning as it goes on. And there's a lot of players in there adapting to life in the Premier League, but they're going to have to learn quickly, because the games come thick and fast. But the transfer window, of course, is still open until the 1st of September. One of the biggest stories of the last few days, it feels like it's been going on for months, has been Moises Caicedo's potential transfer to Chelsea. That now looks as though it is going to happen, and he is going to be going to Chelsea. Reports now that he's having his medical, and in fact that medical has been completed with Chelsea. But that going on in the background of the draw between Chelsea and Liverpool yesterday. They've still got Romeo Lavia from Southampton to sort out, and although Liverpool are now reported to have agreed a fee of around about £60 million all included, Chelsea still could come in with another bid. That one is still not done yet. It's very interesting, this whole approach for defensive midfielders. Surely this was strikers' area before. It
used to be, but that seems to be the fashionable position to play on the pitch now. And when you look at Caicedo, 100 million, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, you looked at the game yesterday, and I think both teams could do with a defensive midfield player, maybe more so Liverpool, because I don't think Alexis McAllister really wants to play there. But the fact that Chelsea have spent now 100 million on 2 players in similar positions in the last 2 transfer windows tells you that's a real area of importance. Now, I'm not quite sure, and Tim will be able to answer this better than me, the dynamic between Enzo, Caicedo, and if they're in for Lavia as well, I don't see how that works, because they're not creative. They're all kind of defensive-minded. So who supplies the ammunition, who gets in the box, who gets the goals?
I think they're so good that they're flexible. I think Enzo, yesterday you saw Fernandes, he wasn't a sitting midfield player, you know, someone who picked the ball up and drive through the holes. We saw that with Declan Rice for Arsenal. You know, their game is evolving. They're not just sitting midfield players. I think they're adaptable, very versatile. And that's what managers want now, especially at top teams. I still think they're going to struggle with goals. Certainly they can spend all the money they want on midfield players. They've got no one to put the ball in the back of the net. They're going to have a problem. Kai Havertz has left the football club. They need a centre forward. I think Jackson's a good signing. Cuckoo's obviously got injured, which is a big blow for him. But for me, central midfield players going for this sort of money is unheard of. I mean, it is a very important role. I was one of them myself. So self-proclaimed, very important.
But genuinely, and I don't mean this question with any sort of curve on it or anything, but how hard is it? Because rarity value seems to be what's driving the price up. So in terms of how difficult it is and how difficult a position it is for a player to learn, why are there not that many of them around?
I think for managers, especially if they want to play progressively through the thirds, I think the number 6 role, the one who plays in that and gets the ball off the back players and gets on the half turn, checks his shoulder and progressively plays him through the field, I think he's the reference for the manager. He's the one you feel calm. I had a player called Moussa Dembele when I was at Tottenham, and when I used to sit there very nervously when they're passing the ball around, as soon as it went into him, I felt relaxed. I think that someone like Casemiro, for instance, going for that age, going for that sort of money to Manchester United, Caicedo, they obviously feel is that quality. I think he's got a lot to do. I think he's a very good player, but forget the amount, because the amounts are just getting blown out of the water. I mean, it's incredible. But they are the reference. They are the player who is the controller of the game, the one who speeds it up, one who slows it down, the one who breaks the game up as well, because it's very important to get the ball back from the opposition. Enzo Fernandez, I thought, was outstanding yesterday, and I didn't think he was that good last year. I'll give him time to settle for Chelsea, obviously, but I don't think he is a sitting midfield player. I think he is a player who can play as an 8, a box-to-box player. So that versatility is everything for the managers, and they obviously feel they're very important, and there's not a lot of them around of the quality what they need. Hence why they're playing so much for these 1 or 2 players. Yeah,
as Tim said, the market has just gone crazy for defensive midfielders at the moment. And it sort of goes back almost to bringing in, I know he's not necessarily a natural defensive midfielder, but bringing in Enzo Fernandez and breaking the record for him. And then you've got Declan Rice going to Arsenal, and now Moises Caicedo. Plus we've got the ongoing battle for Romeo Lavia, which I think started at 30-odd million and is now up to 16. Potentially, should Chelsea come back in, could rise even higher.
And Southampton are sitting back with their feet up, just waiting for the phone to ring again, aren't they?
Yeah. It's throughout the whole of yesterday's game, they're watching it going, every second that went by, his price is going up and up.
I think as far as all of these midfielders are concerned, particularly Caicedo, this is front page news as well as back page news, because this speaks to the economic power of the Premier League, and people are watching this around the world will see just how much money these big clubs have for the right player. From Brighton's point of view, it's outstanding. £5 million they paid for him, less than 2 years ago from Independiente. He played 49 times for them, Brighton. And he's an outstanding player for all the reasons you've been saying, Tim. I think for Chelsea, if you look at the teams that Pochettino's managed, and take out PSG because they're a bit of a basket case. Sorry if you're a bit PSG. But if you look
outlier.
An outlier. Thank you very much. Much more diplomatic. If you look at Southampton, Victor Wanyama and Morgan Schneiderlin were 2 midfielders who sat in front of the back 4. They earned big moves for Jose Font, for Dejan Lovren. They gave that protection to the back 4 that made St Mary's one of the hardest places to go. Then you look at Spurs, Moussa Dembele alongside Victor Wanyama. Those 2 made Spurs the joint best defensive record of Manchester United one season, and then the outright best defence in his first 2 campaigns at White Hart Lane, as it was then. And what he's clearly looking to do with Enzo and with Caicedo, it's a very similar thing. You will not, once he signs Caicedo, see a situation where their midfield is as overrun as Liverpool managed to yesterday. He wants to provide a shield for that back 4 so that he can build from the back and make Stamford Bridge a fortress, as it wasn't last season. Everybody knows how easy it was to go to Stamford Bridge and get points last season. That will not be the case when he signs Caicedo. So I think he's got a very, very clear idea of the way that he wants to play a player. It may be 2 of them. He does want that depth. He does want to be able to sustain a title challenge. And he's been very open about the fact that when you're at Chelsea, you don't have room for manoeuvre. You have to go for number 1. I think if there is going to be a challenger to... Sorry, Righty, when you're coming up, if you're going to say this. But if there's going to be a challenger to City, I think it'll be Chelsea.
Let's hear what Righty does think about that. He's in Australia at the moment, but he is listening and now has his chance to have a comeback to that.
Don't
Do you
hit
think
me,
that
don't hit me.
Caicedo going to Chelsea nudges them ahead of Arsenal, who themselves have spent a lot of money on bringing in Declan Rice?
No, it'd be a great. It's going to be a great move for Caicedo. For me, especially alongside Enzo. I think Enzo and Caicedo will be, like Darren just mentioned, the two in front of the defence that will solidify it a bit. But in respect of them being the challenge, I have to agree with Tim on who's going to score the goals for them. But I think Chelsea will be in and around it. But I do feel that Arsenal will still be up there without a shadow of a doubt.
What do you make of this huge market now for defensive midfielders?
Well, I think that what is shown when you look at teams and how they're trying to defend, how important it is to have that defensive player in front of the back four there, and when you haven't got it, how much that player is missed. I think that, you look at someone like Caicedo in Brighton's midfield and how brilliant he done and how good their defensive record was. I think the same, you probably have to say, even with Arsenal, you miss somebody like Thomas Partey. It's like that defensive midfielder does so much for the team in not only breaking things up, but it's the way that they can progress the ball as well. Declan Rice was playing. Look at, he's gone. It's just Lavia we're seeing now, which is really exciting for him, obviously. It's just a position that if you are playing that kind of football with a defensive midfielder, then he becomes, like Tim says, one of the pivotal players, speeds it up, slows it down, breaks the game up, how he progresses the ball. It's a very, very important player in the system now. Obviously, the goal scorer, I still believe, will always be, as Darren, I'm sure, will agree, will always be the most important. But like that player now, the number 6, the defensive holding midfielder, has become, as we can see, highly sought after and needed.
Right. I don't necessarily disagree with you about the ability of Arsenal to score goals, because we've seen that they can step up and take responsibility. What I just wonder is, in the same way that I was talking about those partnerships in front of defence, I would have thought that it would have been Rice and Partey in front of that back four as a very stable two, and then maybe Odegaard in front of those, because we know about his ability to thread passes through to the offensive, to the striker or out to the wide areas. Is it not that cut and dried, or do you think that it could be a bit more
Fluid.
Fluid?
Yeah.
That's the word. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that he could do both of those. He could probably do both of those scenarios, because you can either have Rice just in front with Odegaard and who's the other one, and one other. Who can it be? I'm trying to think. So you can have Thomas Partey as the 5, and you can have Odegaard and Rice as like 8s, and you can even have Odegaard as a 10, or you can have the two of them and Odegaard in front of them. I think that works with Partey, Rice, and Odegaard in front there. That's how I think that can work. Or even if Partey stays, Declan Rice can go and get involved, like we've seen him do as well in respects of the number 8. So I think that can be really quite fluid in there, but then it will depend on the fitness of Partey.
It's really interesting that you asked that question, because Eddie Howe talked about it after the Newcastle game, about their midfield and how, although there are very clear roles for the players, that it is more interchangeable. They don't have fixed positions in the way that maybe they would have done in previous seasons. But we will talk more about Newcastle a little bit later and their brilliant performance with that 5-1 victory on Saturday. But right, as we said, you're in Australia. You're there for the Women's World Cup. Looks like you're living in a lap of luxury. What else have you been up to?
No, it's been great. I've been doing everything. I can't lie. It's great here. They've been treating us really well. I've done everything, Kels. I've been a pilot. I've been a captain of a boat, a chef, an adventurer. Australia is fantastic. I don't know. Nancy doesn't know it yet, but we're going to be moving here at some point. She doesn't know it, but she'll know now. Food, weather, culture, the people. It's just an unbelievable place to be. And honestly, the World Cup over here has obviously kicked in unbelievably. And it's so exciting at the minute. So exciting.
We're just taking a look at some of the things that you've been up to. Obviously, you've got over your fear of heights.
Yes. This was a really good one. This speedboat was unbelievable. Unfortunately, our camera woman wasn't well because it was moving around to her, so she weren't well. She got sick, which was really good fun to watch. But the heights, Kels, and jumping off the buildings, you know what I mean? Going down to see the Maoris in Otaki, and doing the tour of the Aborigines in Sydney. It's just an unbelievable place in respects of the amount of things to do, and the weather. It's like winter here, but it's amazing here for the weather.
Yeah,
unbelievable here.
Yeah, the enthusiasm. Go on.
Say it again, Kels.
No, you go on.
No, I was just saying, Kels. It's just everything you'd want is unbelievable. Sydney's amazing. Melbourne is awesome as well. Obviously, going to Auckland and Wellington was great as well because they're kind of similar temperatures to England. Brisbane, it's been fantastic.